What do you feel like is the most pressing philosophical question of our time, and why?
Well, there seems to be a lot of interest these days in free will, which I've worked a lot on,
Well, we're going
and
to talk about that.
that's good. Well, it's perhaps it's. Some days I think it is the most important philosophical issue that is attracting attention, and it's attracting attention because some people, including some eminent scientists, are simply wrong about it, and their mistakes, their philosophical mistakes, are having a very negative effect, I think, on the world. It
Uh-huh.
actually matters. People can talk themselves out of their free will, or they can be talked out of their free will by somebody authoritative and persuasive. And that's a real problem. We don't want people to think of themselves as not responsible for what they do. We want them to accept the fact that they're reliable, competent, and that they take responsibility for what they do. And we have people like Robert Sapolsky, but he's not alone. My good friend Jerry Coyne and another good friend Sam Harris, they all say there's no such thing as free will. And I have gone to some lengths to say why they're wrong, and I've got some even further things to say on that score. I think it's very important that we get this right.
So when someone like Sam Harris convinces himself that he has no free will, does that then make it the case? That is to say, does free will depend on the belief in free will? So he can actually wish his free will away and be correct about that?
Well, he could get all lethargic and just sit there like a tree in the forest and not do anything. I don't think he's able to persuade himself of that. But I don't want him even to try, because I think it's important that Sam Harris take responsibility for what he does. And if he thinks he isn't responsible for what he does, then he's a dangerous person.
What if he says that he's just the observer observing his actions and his body is responsible, but not him as the observer? And that's the one that he identifies with.
That's the ghost in the machine. That's another aspect of the big mistake. It's the Cartesian gravity, as I call it. It's the idea that when people think about the mind, they end up backing up into their own brains and thinking that who they are is this inner witness in the Cartesian theater. And then they decide they're just the witness. They're not the agent. They're not the decider. And if they actually convince themselves of that, I think they would collapse in a heap. But they don't. But they say they do, and they work hard. In fact, one of the interesting things about Robert Sapolsky's recent book, Determined, is that he's honest enough to admit he can't convince himself he doesn't have free will. And I say, write and don't try, because we need you to stay among the people that take responsibility for what they do.
Are people both the witness and the decider, or just one or more?
Well, they're both witness and decider. They are. What's an agent? An agent is let's put it in really simple terms. It's a material structure that has been designed to utilize information it captures from the world around it and uses that to inform the decisions it makes. So it has beliefs and desires. Its beliefs are based on what it hears and sees and smells and feels. Its desires depend on what it thinks is important, and it can adjust its desires. It can reevaluate its desires. A person agent. There are lots of agents that are much simpler than that. A bacterium can't reconsider its objectives. A tree can't perceive very much. It can perceive some, and it takes action. It makes decisions on the basis of what it perceives. If it perceives that the light that's falling on it is reflecting more green, it means that the trees around it are growing up around it, and it'll shift some of its growth into vertical growth because it doesn't want to get overshadowed by the other trees. Now, it doesn't know that it has that belief or that desire, but it's a very good agent. It's better than the competition. That's why it exists. It's been designed to be a good agent.
When you speak to people like Sam Harris or Robert Sapolsky, who, just for those who are unfamiliar, take the view that there is no free will, they both take the view that there is no libertarian free will and that there is no compatibilist view of free will, or that the compatibilist view is incoherent. So when you speak to those people, do you get the sense that when you use the word belief and deciding an agent, that it means something different to them? So for instance, Sam may say that, well, belief and desire are just feelings. Just like you mentioned, we have the feeling of touching something. They're no different than other, here's a loaded word for you, qualia, but you understand what's meant. In other words, do you feel like they are using terms not in the same way that you're using, or is the disagreement somewhere else?
Well, I think many of the disbelievers in free will are still enthralled with really Cartesian ideas about what a mind is, what beliefs and desires are, what qualia are. And we've learned a lot since Descartes, and mainly because of Darwin. Darwin doesn't just overthrow the idea of God as the intelligent designer, also overthrows the idea of an individual agent, a human mind, like Descartes, as just a res cogitans, an immaterial thinking thing that is somehow situated in causal contact with the material body. That's a hopeless idea, and even people who recognize that dualism is a hopeless idea find it hard to remove the Cartesian thinking from their perspective, and that's perhaps the most persistent philosophical error that I have encountered. That's why I've been battling it now for over 50 years.
How would Sam respond if you were to say, hey, Sam, that's dualistic thinking? Because it's my understanding Sam is a monist or non-dualist.
Well, I think he thinks he is, but I don't think he's consistent. I think that he betrays his Cartesian hankerings in various ways, and I've tried hard to persuade him to see it otherwise, but so far without success.
If you enjoyed that clip, then the full podcast is out right now. You can click around here. Enjoy. Subscribe to Theories of Everything to get notified of upcoming podcasts, as there are new full-length podcasts every week on the topics of mathematics, physics, consciousness, free will, and AI.